What's up? It's your boy B Weezy back for another. So this week I'm just gonna talk a little bit because it got brought up in conversation about the Pennsylvania hunting seasons and whether the hunting is better now or whether it was 20 years ago, 24 years ago when I started hunting. So that's kind of just what I'm going to talk about today, as I'm just here on this path that I'm showing you. Now, why I'm showing you this is back in the day, this path, as you can see how thick it is over on this side. And I mean, it's kind of hard to see with the leaves, but it's open on this side. But back in the younger days, that stump right there, there's that stump. And then this big tree right here. Back years ago, like when we first started hunting, you could stand right along this path and you would see deer all day long in rifle season. I didn't really bow hunt hard when I was little, so I would only go out when my dad would go with us. But in rifle season, having 4 boys, he would put us in places where he could constantly check on us. So what he would normally do is, back then, not a lot of people had all their land posted and shit like they do now. Now everything's posted. But he would set us up along this path, and we would be about 150, 200 yards apart, which I know is illegal, but oh well. But anyways, he would do that. So we all had our different places to hunt, and we couldn't see each other. But my dad could then spend all day walking up and down this path and checking on us. He'd talk to one of us for 5 or 10 minutes, and then he'd slowly keep walking, get to the other one, check on it, go to the next one, because I'm a triplet. And then when I was 14, I had a younger brother that was 12. So at one point there was 4 of us, and that's just how we would do rifle season. So he'd keep an eye on us, make sure we were okay. And, he never went more than an hour without checking in on us. But we knew the other people that hunted up through here, and, they'd come out and talk to us and stuff like that too. But the thing I want to talk about is, was it better then or is it better now? So we'll talk about then for a little bit. Back then, we saw massive amounts of deer. You couldn't go in the woods, especially on the first day of rifle season. We would see deer all day long. So many deer. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I can't remember if when it was that doe season in Pennsylvania came in on the first day of rifle. I remember the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of rifle season, but I don't know if I ever hunted that or if we all just would go out with my dad on those days and sit with him when it was only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You could doe hunt, but whatever. Not the amount of deer around back then was crazy, and it made hunting so much fun because all day long, you would see something. Even though maybe you couldn't get shots at them and stuff like that, you see them all day. But the other thing I remember from back then is the bucks. You were little. There was little spikes. You'd see 25 deer with a spike and a half rack 2-point. And then, if you saw a 1.5-year-old 8-point or a 2.5-year-old 8-point or 6-point, it was a monster back then. You know what I mean? You're like, oh wow, that buck was so big, and everybody shot him. If your dad shot a 6-point, it was cool. Your dad got a buck, but you'd see 30, 40 deer, and you might see 2 bucks. You'd see, if you hunted the Saturdays too. Back then, well, everybody took off the second day, but you might see 200 deer standing at the same spot, counting all days of hunting season. But you'd be lucky if you saw, 4 or 5 bucks, and probably the majority of them were little. So that was back then. The amount of deer you saw was incredible. Compared to now, you don't see as many deer. You can come up here and hunt these same spots that we hunted when we were younger, which is really weird for us, because in last week's video, I showed you that they clear cut a bunch up there. Well, in the previous years before that, they clear cut so much more out up on top. Like, it used to all be woods, and now it's like 80, 90 acres of fields up there. So that's like all the woods is down here now, closer to where we always hunted. So you would think that the deer would be down this way and that, you would see more of them, but we still don't really see the numbers like we used to. But the quality of deer that we see now since like the antler restrictions is crazy. Like, we're passing up 2.5-year-old 8 points. Not that we're shooting 150-inch bucks, but we're passing up bucks that 20 years ago you'd have never passed up. Some of the ones that we see during bow season, if you just saw that at any point in rifle season, you'd have shot it and you'd have bragged about it. And it's just the quality of deer are different, but the numbers seem to be way down. And I know I watch people on YouTube and that hunt, and they say, oh, there's deer all over PA. Well, those people that are saying that, nothing against them, but they didn't hunt PA 23 years ago when it was just loaded. Everywhere you went, you saw deer. Every stand you sat in the woods, you saw deer. And now, like, it's hard, like, even like my kids are young, but when I like take them out just for like, they don't want to sit more than a half an hour, 45 minutes. Like, it's hard to take them to where you're going to see something to get them into the hunt, and then like they get bored and they want to go. So I don't force it. I just, walk in, like, whatever. We stay close to the house and walk in. But those same spots when I was a kid, you would go out and see deer right away. I took my middle kid, she was 6, and we went out hunting last year, and we went to a spot that it's a spot that it's like kind of an ambush spot. If you hunt it right, you get real close to them. But I mean, back in the day, man, if we wanted to shoot a doe, that's the spot we went to. Like, if you had a doe tag, that's where you went and sat, and you'd get to shoot at one every evening. And I took my daughter there. The first time, didn't see anything. The second time, we didn't see anything. And we started walking out of the woods. We waited till it was dark, and we started walking out, and we jumped like 2 or 3 on the way out that were definitely coming our way. And then I took her again the third time, and it was a little bit colder then, and we didn't see anything. And then she kind of like didn't really want to hunt anymore, because even though we jumped them, I saw the tails, but she didn't really get to see them. I knew that they were deer, but she's little. She didn't really get to put eyes on them, so she wasn't excited about it. And I think for me, being 36 now, that I like hunting season better now, because like, I'm into hunting. I'm not the world's best hunter by far, but I like putting time in, going out in the woods, doing stuff like that. I like being able to pass up little bucks. Like, I like seeing a couple bucks in the area, and the next year being like, oh, that's that buck from last year, and getting bigger. Because now if I shoot one, I like it to be big enough that I can at least like Euro mount it and put it on the wall. But then I noticed with my brothers, they're not, I mean, they hunt, but they're not. Me and my younger brother are really into hunting. The two, my brother that's 2 minutes older than me, the one triplet, and then my other triplet brother that's like 2 minutes younger than me, they're really not into it as much anymore. And a lot of it is because they just don't see anything. They're not really hard into bow hunting. Like, they have, well, Travis has a crossbow and a compound, but he just really isn't into it. And Chad has a crossbow, and he's gotten lucky the last 2 years. And like the first time he's went out in November, he's shot a buck. But he's just not really into it because you don't really get to see much deer. And my dad's the same way. My dad was a big hunter growing up, got us into hunting. But now, like, my dad might hunt, he definitely hunts the first day of rifle, and he might go out on the Saturdays, and that's all that he gets in for the year. But he doesn't see the deer, and I think it gets boring to him. So, yeah, I don't know. I just wonder how everybody else feels about it. Because I know that there's definitely boring days that I sit in the stand and, nothing's really going on. But then I live for those days where November 10th, 2000 and what was it? It's been 9 years ago. November 10th, 2016, 2016. Yeah, 2000, or no, it would have been 2017. It was the best day hunting I ever had. I'll probably never have another day like it, but I just put up a blind in a spot that I had hunted, that I had thought about hunting, didn't really hunt it at all, and I had a trail camera down there, and I checked the trail camera late in the year, like the last week of bow season, like middle of November, and I had like a bunch of different bucks on it, and I like really couldn't believe the size of one of the bucks that I saw on it. Well, actually two of the bucks I saw on it. So I went in and I hunted it, and an evening I went in, put up the blind, hunted it that evening, and that evening I didn't see anything, but right at dark I heard deer, and I sat there because I could hear them. It got dark, I couldn't see, but I knew that a deer ran like 30 yards in front of me, and then about 30-40 seconds after it, I heard another deer coming, and it was a buck because I could hear it grunting, and I could tell it was right where that first deer came through at. But again, I like couldn't even see. It was pitch black at this time in the woods. So I hit my brother-in-law up because we were supposed to hunt the next day, and I said I was going. He said, "Oh, I'm kind of tired. I'm going to sleep in. Maybe I'll come meet you in the afternoon, or we'll meet up in the afternoon and hunt later in the day together." So I went in that morning. And throughout that morning, I saw 13 different bucks. I mean, I didn't go from, I ended up shooting what was my biggest buck at the time, a 9-point, at 4:30 that evening. But I bet you I didn't go 40 minutes the whole day without seeing a set of horns. Now, sometimes I had like the same buck, walking by me 3 or 4 times that day. And the craziest part was that the path, that doe must have been in heat, because the path that doe walked on in the first half of that morning, I had so many deer walk by me that on the path, the same exact path that doe and that buck came through the night before. And I saw 2 of the biggest bucks that I had up to that point that I ever saw hunting that time came through. And the first one was this big, massive 8-point. I mean, it was heavy, it was wide, it was high, it was beautiful. And it never got, well, I said like 30 yards away because they were that loud, but I had my rangefinder and it walked by. It turned out they were walking this fence row of it was like an old peach thicket, and they were 60 yards away. So I didn't have a shot at it. I thought that it was going to walk by me, but it stayed 60 yards away. It was the first buck I saw that morning. All the other bucks started doing the same thing. And I ended up moving throughout the day. I didn't move my blind. I just went out and sat on the ground, but got closer to that fence line. And then I ended up connecting later in the evening. But I passed up a couple bucks that I could have shot too, just because of what I was seeing that day. I didn't want to, waste my tag because I kind of knew from the pictures of what was down there. But, what else was, one of the craziest thing was about that day is my father-in-law, we had this buck, it was a 9-point, but we called it the wide 8 because the year before it was super wide. And then the next year it was an even bigger buck, but it turned into a 9-point. And he had an opportunity at it, like, sometime in the middle of October, and it was like a cold front in October. He shot it in an evening hunt and never could find it. And he watched it walk away. He ended up hitting it in the shoulder, watched it walk away. We never saw that buck again on cameras or anything the rest of the bow season. But I told my brother-in-law and father-in-law, like, I knew that buck that I saw it that day, and it was the weirdest thing. All these deer were following this trail going up this fence line, and then they were going up on top to the neighbor's property, which we weren't allowed to hunt. But I saw them all doing that, and there was activity up on top of that hill too. And then at one point in the late morning, this big buck came chasing these 2 smaller bucks, and that thing was about 80 yards above me. And it stopped on the hill and looked right down at the blind I was in. And it looked at me. The other bucks came down behind. I had a perfect wind to hunt that spot. the other bucks like kind of came down, meandered like behind me, but they never crossed the gully behind me, which my wind was blowing down, and they worked away. But I knew that it was that 9-point that we called the wide 8. And as soon as it saw my blind, it literally stopped, looked at me for like 3 seconds, turned around, and I never saw it again the rest of the day. Never got any pictures of it or anything over in that area. The day after rifle season ended, we got a picture of that buck again. And it came out on that side of the farm is where we got the picture of it at, that I thought that I saw it at, which was so weird. Like, it lived in this area all the time, and then as soon as he shot out of it, it never came back on that farm again. But that one morning that I kind of hunted the boundary line, I saw it again. And as soon as it saw my blind, which is like the blinds that we had on that farm that we were hunting it out of, it turned around and immediately left. And then no pictures of it again that we could confirm it was that buck, but I thought it was. Then it showed up the day after rifle season ended. It started showing back up on trail cameras. We went up and walked the top of that hill, which is like where the property line was, looking for sheds. And wouldn't you know it, that like within 10-15 minutes of shed hunting, we found the left side of its shed. So it was just like laying up right there. And we kind of looked where we found the shed at, up on the top of this hill. If it laid up there, it could see us every time that we came to and from the property. Like anything that we did, because of the way we came in, it could see any of the ways that we'd ever come in from that property, because we only had one way to access it. But that was when I really gave the deer, like, okay, like, this is how they get big. Like, they're not stupid, you know. That has nothing to do with now and then, but I've always thought that was crazy how that happened. But yeah, so that day, 13 bucks, that would have never happened 20 years ago. It just ludicrous to me, seeing that many, and the quality of bucks I saw that day were absurd. But yeah, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, there's only about 20 of you that watch this channel, but that's cool. But I'm just wondering what you guys think. Was hunting better back then in Pennsylvania, when the woods just seemed like it was loaded with deer and you saw deer all the time, even though there wasn't very many bucks? Or is the hunting better now that you don't see as many deer, but the quality of bucks is definitely up? Like, you see 2.5-year-old 8-pointers all the time that you can pass up if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But yeah. So that's just a thought that I had. Yesterday I got a new crossbow, and that's going to be my next episode. We're going to shoot that in, and I'm going to shoot some with my brothers, and you guys can meet all of them then. We'll talk about compound hunting compared to crossbow hunting, because I know that's a hot topic and everybody has an opinion on it. But yeah, just a little rundown memory lane for this one. It's your boy B Weezy. Every week, all year, every week. Peace.